Greetings, Cybertronians. Just another reminder that my friend's webcomic is still undergoing its crowdfunding phase. If you like science fiction, that is good science fiction, better than this shit anyway, I highly recommend checking out his webcomic, Extrion. At the time of writing, he's almost 2/3 of the way there, so let's see what we can do for him. Now, on to today's diagnosis.
Read the disclaimer! On the other one, you bastard!
Brought to you by supporters who probably have better taste than this schmuck.
It's currently August 2nd, 2021. I just finished a playthrough of Metroid Zero Mission last night. Housework is done, work is off for a while due to obvious reasons, and so I sit in front of my computer. Pen in one hand, a notebook in the other, I prepare to rewatch War for Cybertron Kingdom on Netflix for a second time. I sit, I prepare, and I'm sorry, I just can't bring myself to. That's not to say I'm physically incapable of rewatching the show. I've got plenty of time to do so, and nothing is stopping me. So why do I unconsciously refuse to give it a second watch through? I did so for the previous 2 seasons after all. So, the truth of the matter is, I could easily watch through and take notes on everything this show does wrong. I could easily relish in the details and get all animated atrocities up in this bitch, but what's the point? Hell, I'll take it one step further. Why should I even bother reviewing this in full? The dialogue is still verbose and meaningless. The characters always talk about how they feel instead of letting subtext do the work. The characters have little to no depth, save for a few standouts here and there. The voice acting is often bad and the voice directing is abysmal across the board. Things happen, but there's no emotional center, no core that holds everything together, no narrative through line that keeps you engaged. It is, by and large, Netflix's War for Cybertron. I've already gone over all of this in great detail. It's all the same shit, only worse. If you liked the previous seasons, you're probably going to think this is the best one, bar a few moments. If you disliked them, you'll pretty much hate this with a severe passion. I don't like making videos when I have nothing to say. People ask me to review figures and cover media that I have nothing to say about. Subjects where I cannot provide a clear perspective. I've been sitting at this computer for hours, unable to either press play on the rewatch or start a script in the general review style. And even then, what's the point? Did the creators put any effort into this show? No! Why should I bust my ass writing a full, in-depth review as to why this is one of the most depressing Transformers shows in recent memory, not in the sense of a narrative, but in the sense of the context? Yes, it's failing to reach an audience outside of existing fans. Yes, it does a worse job of world building than even shows like Interspecies reviewers. We know, we all no! So instead, I'm going to examine something smaller. One scene, one small moment, everything crumbles from there. I know the bar is set pretty goddamn low, but even so, there is one point where it decimates the little legacy it has.
You are now entering Diagnosis. Insanity.
Okay, from this point on, full spoiler mode. I highly recommend skipping this show anyway and moving on with your life, but if for some twisted reason you still want to go ahead, you've been warned. Also, spoilers for all of this but at this point, this media is really old, so I don't think anyone cares. Last warning. Okay, we good? We good. When you first start watching the show, if you're in the same mindset I am, nothing seems too different. It's essentially the same mediocrity you've come to expect, the same old nonsensical bullshit and long-winded monologues that repeat thematic shit we've already been over. Optimus Prime continues his long-winded nonsense on why the Allspark is the most important thing ever. The new Beast Wars characters present some of the worst voice acting in the franchise. Dinobot gets killed off because it's what happened in the original show and nostalgia sells. And everyone acts like it's the saddest thing ever when honestly we've barely known him for any time at all. And for the time we have known him, it's just long-winded speeches that amount to nothing. Yeah, speeches are what make a character seem poignant, not carefully crafted and timed dialogue. Most of the story takes place in the same jungle with the same copy-paste assets for the sake of budgetary reasons. Megatron starts hallucinating because apparently the only way to depict someone falling into insanity is through dream sequences. I mean, it's not like you can depict someone's fall from grace in more nuanced ways. That's impossible. It's not like Netflix already has great examples in animation of such. They try to make it super horrifying seeing the Allspark take forms of those closest to Prime, but really it accomplishes nothing but pointing out they didn't have the budget to give the Allspark any other forms. We get a meme that honestly I don't think should be a meme and I reckon will be forgotten in a week or two. They reveal that the only reason Dinobot died was to act as a Deus Ex Machina to get Primal into the chamber, despite the fact he accomplishes nothing. They have this big moment moment where Megatron is corrupted by the Matrix and the Allspark, which not only renders the fight scene before it useless, but also renders itself useless when Megatron is fine in a few moments. The Ark transforms for like 2 minutes because they have to advertise the toy. Buy our toys. This is a toy advert that hates itself. Buy our toys. Honestly, I had trouble staying awake for this one, and one of my friends actually fell asleep at episode 2. If that was the whole series, I probably wouldn't have bothered making a video on it at all. But then, the final episode hits. Upon the return to Cybertron, already something is off. The entire planet has entered a complete ice age. To be honest, I actually really like this concept. Sure, it's not given enough time to truly be explored, but it's probably the most realized version of a dead Cybertron. Other shows have tried, but it always seemed halfway there. You never got a sense of how dire the situation was. It seems like people could easily just inhabit the planet regardless, even if there were in-universe reasons that explain the contrary. They then get ready to revive the planet, and, well, things get stinky. This is where the worst scene kicks off. Conceptually, Galvatron and Nemesis Prime could work. Their terror on the subject of Unicron could hypothetically be a solid ground for motivation, if we actually had a reason to be afraid of him. Now, for a second, forget you know anything about Transformers. Assume you've never seen anything from this property in your life. Why should you be afraid of Unicron? You get glimpses of what is supposed to be, but there's nothing that really draws you in. In the grand scheme of things, he doesn't do shit, and it's not like he has a horrifying design that lets you know he means business. Nah, they're just copying the HasLab toy. I hate to compare this to other shows and show how they did it better, because it's best to examine it for its own qualities in a vacuum, but the only way to explain this is to take another look at the 86 movie. What's the first goddamn thing you see? Bam! Unicron decimates an entire population. Right off the bat, you're met with a sense of terror, elevated by Vince DiCola's masterful score and Toei's brilliant animation. I saw this on the big screen for the first time a few months ago, and it really heightens how well this was directed. Then throughout the film, you are given glimpses into his true nature. He's an unstoppable force that just exists. Malicious in his very existence, not in the actions he takes. Hell, H-Bomber Guy did an entire video comparing Unicron to the works of Nietzsche, if that's how you pronounce it. I don't know. The content of the movie may not be the most groundbreaking, but the subtext is definitely there. In Kingdom, he just kinda exists. He doesn't actively impact the plot in any meaningful way. You could easily write him out and nothing would change. Ultimately, he's just there for two reasons: to provide fan service to existing fans and to promote a toy that is long since sold out, because Hasbro grossly overestimated how long the animation process would take, even ignoring the side effects of the pandemic. Hell, I didn't even realize the whole thing was incorporating Lovecraftian elements, with Starscream going insane from his discovery, until a friend pointed it out. I was so numbed by the abysmal writing throughout the show that it didn't even register to me. Not that realizing such makes it any better. Point is, without a reason to care about Unicron, the word of Galvatron and Nemesis Prime is the only thing we have to go off. And it's just not enough. It's the whole show don't tell thing again. Although given how verbose the writers love to be, I don't know why I expected anything better. Christ, I think I preferred Nemesis as an allegory. But then it gets worse. So you remember the impact Avengers Endgame had, where all the characters you've come to love fight side by side at last? Well, I've seen people call this fan service, but honestly, I don't think that accurately describes this. The reason this scene hits you so well is because of the tireless crafting of the universe. You've come to care for all these characters. The MCU has done all the groundwork to make you give a shit. Without any of that groundwork, well, you get War for Cybertron Kingdom. Oh yay, everyone's teaming up. Who gives a shit? The concepts at play set the stage for a damn fine climax, but I doubt any new fans watching this could even tell you the names of most of these characters. They're expecting a big swell of excitement here, but in the end, it's just not worth it. And speaking of, the best characters in the show, the ones with the most development, they aren't even here. The ones they actually put in the groundwork for are nowhere to be seen. Maybe they're gonna show up at the last minute? And welcome to Rock Bottom! In the final Deus Ex Machina, the ghosts of the fallen return to the Earth for one last time, and... oh, wait, is that Jetfire? Red Alert and... Moon Race? What the
Hold the phone! No! No, you did not! You did not just kill the only thing I liked about this series off screen! What the fuck?
I realize this may seem like pointless fandom rage, but it's not what they did, it's
how they did it. I know many people love to complain about characters getting killed because they have an attachment to them, but personally, I'm open to it happening when it's done right. And when is it done right? Well, in my mind, it's actually a pretty low bar. People often complain about the deaths in recent Star Wars movies, both in Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, and I think both of these are done fairly decently. Granted, The Force Awakens less so, but Han Solo's death legitimizes Kylo Ren as a serious threat. Luke's death in The Last Jedi also acts as a passing of the torch to the new generation. There are many things I will criticize this movie for, but I'll at least respect it for the concepts it tries to present. And this scene right here, this is genuinely a good scene, even ignoring the say what you love segment. Damn, they really did Rose dirty. Disney Plus TV show, please. Then you have deaths for shock value, and these tend to get fandoms pissed off even more. Many have described them as empty calorie deaths, providing nothing of worth to the story, and yeah, they're kind of right, but at the same time, they're not completely awful. Yes, I would have liked to have seen these characters continue their stories, but hey, at least there's more to enjoy about it beyond that. Hell, let's even bring in The Last of Us 2 as a comparison as well. Granted, I've only seen clips of this game and have never actually engaged in the gameplay since I refuse to support a company that hospitalizes its developers, but at the very least, the deaths of the characters in that game were used to facilitate a brand new story. Whether you love it or hate it, ideas came from that decision. This death isn't used to create new ideas, it's designed to remove them and insult the audience. Now, you may think this is a ridiculous assumption, but let's examine what actually happened in the last season. As discussed in the last Netflix War for Cybertron video, the best part of the show was easily the Elite 1 story arc. It was unintentionally brilliant amongst the mediocrity in the other storylines. It pretty much made the series for me and was written in a way that didn't feel as poorly done. Ironically, it didn't feel like Brandon Easton wrote that segment, and that kinda hints at something here. Yet, this team is oddly absent after the cliffhanger in Earthrise's final episode. We go from this to this. You know what this feels like to me? It feels like the writers don't want you focusing on the parts of the show you actually like. They only want you focusing on the parts of the show they want you to like. The Alita storyline, it's not the main plot. You're supposed to like Optimus whining. You're supposed to enjoy the timey-wimey bullshit. Now, you might think this sounds crazy. Dr. Lockdown, how could you possibly assume the writer hates his audience like this? You don't know that at all. Except I do, because this isn't a 3-part video series. It's a 4-part one. All the evidence is right here, back in that awful comic. From the moment Brandon Easton has set foot in the Transformers franchise, he has had massive contempt for his audience. This is not how you write a story. I don't care if you want to appeal to fans or not. I don't care if you want to create something vastly different from what people are expecting, or want to go with the most bog-standard rehash of previous ideas. You do not hate what you're working on. I don't know what kind of conditions this man went through whilst under this project, but everything from day one has screamed, I hate Transformers fans. Every decision has either been, well, they're too dumb to expect anything else, or pointless subversion of tropes that don't really stand on their own. This has a side effect of making the show borderline unwatchable for new fans. Sure, there are people who've been engrossed with the dark tone and animation style, but from the sheer lack of buzz outside this little bubble we call the Transformers fandom, you can see it hasn't made an impact. The decisions he's made has alienated the general audience, meaning this only appears to Transformers fans, which it is ironically going against. Easton has been so focused on belittling fans that he's forgotten to write something that stands on its own. This scene finally puts all of that into perspective. How dare we enjoy a part of the show that he didn't plan on? The Elite 1 story arc was meant to be the B-plot, and with this scene, he has essentially rendered the best part of the show a filler arc. F*** what you like, it's about what he likes. And if that wasn't bad enough, the show then proceeds to tear down its own ideologies. Throughout the 3 seasons, there's been one consistent idea. Optimus Prime was wrong to remove the Allspark from Cybertron. The point is hammered home, especially in Earthrising Kingdom. It's nothing especially deep. Double Dealer expressing his anger for the situation, the Maximals and Predacons being a direct result of his actions, the Allspark taunting him in the battle outside the temple. The writing isn't good per se, but you get the idea. Even Elite 1 constantly spoke out against Optimus for this. From day one, she perhaps embodied this idea too much. In Season 1, she was really just a spokesperson for how bad Prime's plan was. It was only in Season 2 that she truly came into her own, amplified with the chemistry with Jetfire. So, do you know what they do with her final scene?
Alita, forgive me.
It was the only choice, and no one else could make it.
What the No! 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 No, f off! No! No! You literally had an entire episode in Earthrise dedicated to Prime's therapy session, realizing what he had done was wrong and learning to move on, and you justify his actions! What the hell is wrong with you? In a single line, in one fell swoop, this show has successfully destroyed its entire premise. Everything it's been building up to, for better or for worse, shattered in a instant. If you've liked the show so far, if you've liked everything it's been working towards, well, I hope you like having your hopes and dreams shattered. This right here, this is why this scene isn't just the worst in this series, but the whole trilogy. The few things they did right have all had a big, fat, fiery dump taken on them. I typically don't get angry about media. If something's a dumpster fire, I remain disappointed for a few hours, then get over it. This show was the first time I've walked out of a digital experience angry. The sheer disregard for not just the audience's intelligence, but also its own is sickening. I can take or leave any other criticisms of this show, but this one scene needed special attention. The writers, especially Brandon Easton, have presented a massive level of disrespect. And I don't care whether you think this show should have been for fans or not, but it has alienated anyone who might have been interested. And I, for one, am glad it's over. No, I don't think they'll make another season after this. This show hasn't reached an audience outside of the fandom, and ultimately there's just no point to continue it. They've got more movies coming from Paramount, they've got more shows popping up on platforms that probably give more of a shit, and the comics are actually gaining traction for once. I think this series is dead in the water, and you know what? Good. I'm done. Many people are done. You, good sir, should be done. I could end this video in a multitude of ways, but all of those endings have been done before. Those who don't learn from history are destined to repeat it. Deviations video. The future of the franchise looks bleak. Siege video. They need to make shows for more than just fans of the franchise. Siege video. The show has failed in what it set out to do. Earthrise video. Kingdom hasn't presented any new ideas, but rather recontextualized all the shitty ones the previous two had. If you're thinking of giving the trilogy a shot or hedging your bets on whether to see the last season or not, honestly, save your energy. Whether you like the previous two shows or not, one way or another, the ending is more than likely going to piss you off. I'm not typically the kind of person who believes in the objective good. In my mind, everyone has a difference in opinion, and logically what they consider to be good and bad will be vastly different. There is no objective marker of quality in the end, and if you're going to voice your opinion, it's no more valid than mine. That said, this show pissed me off. If you don't value my opinions and disagree with everything I say, I'm glad you enjoyed it. If you do value my opinions, steer clear of this abysmal piece of media. When this show started off, I didn't consider it to be the worst thing ever. But now, with this episode, with this final scene, it has, in my mind, become one of the worst pieces of Transformers media of all time.